Hi, I'm Angie Beto, and welcome back to Town Talk with Town Square Buzz. We are again sitting down with Dick Stevens as we continue our conversation. Dick is running for MISD Board of Trustees, Place 4. We're glad to see that people are interested in taking those positions. I know it must be a challenge, big time commitment on your part.
Pays great though.
Pays great, I'm sure. What makes you want to do that?
It's like I said, I just have a huge passion to be involved with kids. And then when I moved to McKinney, I knew I wanted to be involved. And the first thing I did was got involved with Leadership McKinney and looked around at different things that I wanted to get involved in. So I was on numerous boards and planning and zoning for 2 terms. But the thing that I really wanted to do was serve on the school board. I just feel like I see it even in my working with all the school boards around the state that I work with and whatnot, that a lot of people just join the board just to be on it. And then they don't do anything to show up for a free meal and a board meeting. My theory is that I want to be the best at what I do, but I for sure want to, when I'm representing the community and the district, I want to be the best. So I just think that with the amount of energy, the time that I've taken to train, I spend about 100 hours a month right now working in Washington, D.C., Austin, going to classes, being on boards, legislative action committees, that, you know, it's just, I'm the right guy to be here right now. And
so you're learning how to be a board member.
Well, I spent the last 3 years learning. Now I want to spend the next 3 years actually taking all that training and all that working and I've done to actually move this board
and apply
to be one of the best boards in the state.
Okay.
I think we can.
Terrific. In our last segment, you mentioned the bond issue, that it will also be on the ballot at the same time that we're voting for our school board person. How do you see the bond issue as affecting, what's the benefit for us as citizens in McKinney? What message would you bring to our readers about the bond issue?
Well, first of all, I think it's the community's responsibility, along with the state's, to provide an education for all the kids and the best education that we can provide them and afford for them. In the years past, when we had fast growth in the community, you know, lots of houses, lots of new shopping centers and buildings, we could afford to spend a lot more money to expand and build the best. Right now, because right now the economy's tight, we've just went through the worst financial situation the district's probably ever been through since the Great Depression. We're having to cut back. And in fact, this is a this is a bond election that we really should have had 2 years ago, but we kept putting it off, hoping that things would improve. And it didn't. So now we're past the point of where it's an option to have a bond sell, or bond election, bond sell. We've got a high school that should have been renovated 5 or 10 years ago. That's McKinney High School. We've got elementary schools that have 6 portables, and the kids have to go to another portable to go to the restroom. Can you imagine what the teachers are having to do to take the kids to the restroom? We've got a middle school that has 10 to 20 portables. I forgot, I lost count, but portables, and we're keeping expensive instruments out there. We got to expand, and we're growing from 500 to 1,000 kids a year. But on top of that, we have a bubble that's around the 5th, 6th, 7th grade moving up, and that bubble's getting ready to hit the high school, and all of a sudden it's going to be too late, and we're going to have 20 portables at every high school if we don't do something soon. And that is not good for the kids, it's not good for the district. In the long run, it costs more money to begin with. So we need to improve the school facilities. We need to improve our update, our IT, and that's the bare bones of what we're basically doing.
Okay. And you mentioned in our last segment as well that you were originally in favor of building a 4th high school, but you've come around in support of adding on to the high schools, 3 high schools that we have now.
Right.
Do you think that, how do you see that as being a viable alternative?
Well, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's not 10. but it's not a 5 either.
Okay.
A lot of school districts around the state have been successful with 9th grade centers. In fact, Louisville they're going through the same thing we're going through, and they're building 9th grade center. I think for the community and for the kids, it would be better if we had a 4th high school. That way we keep the high school sizes down. But, you know, sometimes you just can't do what's the best, and so you have to go down to the next best. And that's why we're looking at the whole budget things. I mean, I've had people say, why are you cutting this program, which we haven't made any decisions on, but I said, well, would you rather move this program, for example, Link, back into the high schools, or cut another program? So we're having to make decisions that cause the least harm to the education to the students. And a 9th grade center is better than putting kids in portables for 5 years until the economy comes back.
Okay.
So it's the best thing we can do, and it's certainly not a bad, horrible situation. It's just not as good as I'd like it done.
Okay, best decision given the situation we're in.
Yeah.
Got it.
At least we're not out spending money we don't have,
Right.
loading up our credit cards.
Right, good point. As we look forward, you mentioned that absolutely our budget is the biggest issue that we face now and probably for the next few years. And in your mind, Dick, is there anything else that is critical as we move forward in the next 3 years, 3 to 5 years? Is there anything else that's a critical piece of our education that we need to address?
Well, there's a lot of critical things, but because of the budget situation, we're not able to address those. But it's critical that we provide programs that will lower our dropout rate. Closing the Link facility is not going to help that. It's a catch-22. Closing other programs that we do that evidently the state and the federal government think are a shortfall. The problem, the catch-22 is if we let the dropout rates go up,
Right.
then all of a sudden they're going to cut back the money that they give us for those programs.
Sure.
But I tell you, honestly, the budget isn't the biggest problem. The biggest problem is the state underfunding education to begin with. I mean, they've underfunded it for years. They've used it as a political football, and constitutionally, they're required to provide, you know, the money that we need. But on top of that, and my biggest concern, and what I asked the Tea Party and all the Republicans and the Democrats, is that the federal mandates, the unfunded federal mandates, they just keep piling them on. They're talking about since 1995 how much more money we're using to educate kids. Well, what they haven't talked about is since 1995, all the federal programs that we're required to institute, but no one's paying for these. There was promises. The IDEA was promised that they would pay at least 40%, the federal government, of the cost of doing the Individuals with Disability Education Act. Well, that's a very important program. But the problem is they've only provided us with about 10% of the cost of that. So the school district is paying for all of that. And they just keep piling them on. They're spending $300 million right now to create a national test. We don't need a national test. Our kids aren't the same kids that go to North Dakota. We need control. We need to have the ability to run our schools locally. Now the state, because of the Constitution, they have a right to get involved. And quite frankly, in the past, they've done a good job of helping us. Right now, though, the lack of funding is even hurting there. So I would say the critical thing is allowing us to run our schools the way we need to here in McKinney.
So it sounds like you're truly an advocate for more local autonomy, more local decision making. If we could get that message to our state and federal.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's stop there and we'll come back, and we just have a few more questions to talk about your philosophy with regard to the McKinney Independent School District.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Thanks again for joining us. Check back with us as we continue our conversation with Dick Stevens, who is running for McKinney Independent School District Board of Trustees, Place 4.